guys. We are so excited to be having our Workforce Solutions of Central Texas event. We apologize again for not being able to do it yesterday. We had some technical difficulties. So we are giving you part one, going to be right now, and then we're going to be offering the part two after part one. We have today some amazing instructors. We have Mara Gomez, and I will be introducing her later, Suzanne Sinke. Our first session will be with Mara Gomez. These ladies work in the community with people from all over, helping everyone with jobs, careers. Before we get started, we want to remind you that if you have not registered for these workshops, make sure you go to the library website and find events. When you click on events, then there will be a link, registration. Go on to that page and register for the event. If you have a professor who has asked you to watch this, make sure you put your professor's name in that box, and we will go ahead and send an email to that professor. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and give the floor to Mara. If you have questions, make sure that you put your questions into the comment section of Facebook. And Denise Wright is our host today, and she will go ahead and read the questions to our presenters. So take it away, Mara.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. I hope that you've had a good morning so far. As she said, my name is Mara Gomez. I am with Workforce Solutions for Central Texas with the SOAR program, which means Student Occupational Awareness and Recognition Program. Is very long. I'm going to ask you to bear with me during this presentation, mainly because I am sitting not in this beautiful background. Actually, I'm sitting in my office, and we do have bells that ring every period, and then students that might knock on my window to say hello. So just bear with me this morning. It's a pleasure for me to actually be in this platform to be able to share with you basic resume and interview skills this morning, which we all need when you're job seeking or when you're graduating from high school or from college to actually start in the workforce. So before I get started with the PowerPoint, I want to tell you a little bit about myself so we won't be complete strangers for a whole hour. I've been in the Central Texas area for about 42 years, off and on. I'm an Army brat, and that's what brought me here. And I wanted to share a very interesting fact about me. I graduated from high school in Fulda, Germany. And so Fulda American High School had only 8th grade to 12th grade. And so Shaquille O'Neal was in the 10th grade when I was a senior. And so I was the shortest person in my class, and he was the tallest person of the school. So there is that. Well, with no further ado, I want to begin. Oh, before that, I want to send a shout out to my mom in Puerto Rico that's watching me. Hi, Mom. So we can start now. Basic resume and interview skills. All right, so we're going to be touching two different topics this morning. It's going to be resume, and I'm going to go through each one of those. And I'm going to also talk about interviewing. We're going to talk about what a resume is and the purpose. We're going to talk about parts of the resume, types of the resume, and cover letter, and the reference page. On another point is going to be interviewing. Again, what is an interview? What's the purpose? Preparing for the interview, types of interview, during and after the interview, and then a thank you letter. Okay? All right. Well, moving right along, and I love quotes, so I'm going to share a quote with you before we start. Okay? The beginning is the most important part of the work. That's what Plato said. The beginning is the most important part of the work. And I don't know about you, I was actually looking for work at one time. I had an 8-month period that I was job seeking. And the first thing that I had to do was a resume. And resumes they seem like they might be easy, but sometimes they're not. And so today we're going to discuss what a resume is, the purpose and the parts, just like I mentioned before. And hopefully by the end of this workshop, you have learned something new. So let's move on to the first point. Okay, so what is a resume? And I'm going to read this exactly like it's here. This is the definition according to the dictionary. It's a formal written communication used to show potential employers that you have the necessary qualifications to meet specific job requirements. That sounds really serious, right? But it really is. What I think of the resume myself is really you representing you as a person on a piece of paper. So therefore, you have to put a lot of thought into writing the resume or getting help from the resume. We at the workforce are always helping our customers here at the school because we do work with students in career pathways. We help the students also with the resume process. And so the purpose of the resume is to get an interview. And I have this picture here. This guy is so excited. He just got his interview. And so interview is really, the resume is really the hook for you to be able to get that interview. Okay. Me 1 second here, I'm sorry. All right, so we already talked about what the interview is, right? And the purpose of the interview. Or yeah, I'm actually just hitting buttons here like crazy. So let's talk about the parts. I'm sorry, I keep saying interview, but it's resume. The parts of the resume. All right, let's begin with the contact information. The contact information goes at the very beginning, the very top of the resume. And what I want to say about that, your name should always be in bold. It's going to be a font a little larger than the rest of your resume, okay? And so you're going to have your name, last name, address, your email address, and then it's going to be your phone number. Make sure that there's no abbreviations. Like Texas, usually we put TX. You're going to spell out Texas. If you're going to say street, we usually do ST, period, and then the rest, we're going to write out street. So everything looks nice and neat. And I'm going to show you some examples here in a little bit. Also, when it comes to the email address, make sure that your email address is professional. And what do I mean by that? We at the workforce have seen it all. I've seen things from tipsy bartender at whatever.com. I've seen things like hottie247 at whatever.com. You know that it takes an employer just 1 second really to read your personal information. And if he sees the email address and it's not professional, it might be that you might end up in the no pile. So you want to make sure that if you want to keep that specific email that you've had for years, perhaps, like mine, I've had it for like 20 years. I opened a new email. It takes you maybe 3 to 5 minutes, maybe less, to actually do a new one, more professional with your name dot your last name. It could be your initial with your last name. If you're going to place any numbers, I would do a number 1 because everybody wants to hire a number 1, right? I would not share your birth date. I would not share perhaps when you graduated from high school like me back in the 80s. So that would date me. And I want to be presented on paper as young as possible. So that way the employer goes, this person sounds very interesting. I'm going to call her in so that we can interview with her. So it's going to be a hook, literally. Okay. So let me see on the contact information. That's pretty much it. Any questions on the contact information? No? Okay, moving on. On the objective could be something as short as looking for work as nursing practitioner or nurse practitioner, or looking for work in truck driving. It could be that short. It could be a paragraph. And what I used to do was I would go online and type in general objectives for job seeking. and it would give me that. It would give me different examples, and I will pick just a general objective and place it in the resume. A lot of people like objectives, some people don't. I love objectives. And usually they say, well, don't put an objective in your resume, just add a cover letter with it because it just adds to your resume. A lot of employers don't ask for a cover letter. If they ask me for a cover letter, I write it. If not, I won't include it, but I love an objective. And so it could be as long as a small paragraph, or it could just be as short as a phrase. So it's really up to you. It's your resume. You know how they say it's your party and you can cry if you want to? Well, that's exactly how it is with the resume. It's your resume. You can put anything you want in your resume, okay? So let's move on to the work history. On the work history, what I usually share with our customers is make sure you have the company name. A lot of people don't even know who they work for or what company it is or what it was called or the whole name. It's just Walmart. I work at Walmart. But what store is that? Is it Walmart distribution? Is it Walmart Supercenter? Is it Walmart just a store? And so make sure that is bolded. You can bold the employer. Then you're going to add the town. And again, you're going to do, let's say, Temple, comma, Texas, because you're not going to abbreviate anything, right? Like I said earlier. And then you're going to write the month and the year. And I always say, make sure that everything is uniform when it comes to the work history. If you're going to actually write January, then write January, the whole word with the year, and then follow up on that on every date from there on as you write your work history. After your employer and the town and state and the date, and I'll show you an example. I'm trying to get you to use your imagination right now. After that, you're going to enter then what position. What did you work as? Was it a receptionist? Was it a nurse? Was it a truck driver? That's going to go under the employer part, and you're going to italicize it if you want to. That way it kind of separates from the employer and it shows what you did. And then after that, you're going to write your duties right after. What was it that you did? A lot of people say, well, I was a cook and I cooked. Well, that is not a duty. Yeah, you did cook, but did you prep food? Did you work the tables? Anything that you do as in duty, you're going to enter under your. A lot of people really confuse it with the skills, but it's really your duties. What was it that you did within that job? And that way you'll enter it under that work history. It's going to be in chronological order. Also, the work history starts with your most latest recent job, and it goes down to your least recent, like the oldest job that you've had. Usually we recommend for you to go back about 10 years, depending on the employer. If it's federal, sometimes federal, they want everything, all of your work history. So that's why I always advise the younger people that we work with, or our customers or our students, that anywhere that you go work, make sure that you always know who the supervisor is, name and last name, the address, anything that you can copy down and keep on your notes on your phone, on your computer, on a USB. All that information is important because when you get older, guess what? I've had adults that can't remember where they worked 5 years ago or 3 years ago. So it's important to have that work history with you. When did you start? When did you end? So it is very important to keep track of your work history. Now let's move on to any questions on the work history, by the way. No questions?
I have actually a question about the objective.
Yes, ma'am.
Can the objective be like a general, not specifically I'm looking to work here or I'm looking to work there, but a general, I'm an educator and I, seek to help. Can it be generalized, in other words?
Absolutely. It could be generalized. Because I didn't want to do 5 different resumes when I turned in to apply for work, I just did one resume. So I would do a general objective. If you're one of those people that like to have more than just one resume, then by all means, then specify it. Specify the position on the objective. But if you do a general one, I think sometimes it's even easier because if you have resume after interview after interview, after you turn in that resume, it's easier. And not specified to that specific position. It just depends on the person. Okay. Let's move.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. On the skills, it depends on what type of resume you go with. And so skills, that's when you get the opportunity to put what your soft skills are and what your hard skills are. Let me tell you a little bit about, if you don't know what a soft skill is, soft skills are your interpersonal skills. Is how do you get along with other people? Are you a team player? Are you a hard worker? Are you polite to your coworkers? Are you organized? How is your time management? All that is part of soft skills, which they can't see when you put it down on your resume. So that I would usually tell people, well, let's put down you're a hard worker because you're saying that you're a hard worker. Let's put down you're a team player because it lets them know that you can work with other people. You will show that once you start working. But your hard skills are going to be your technical skills, things that you learn that you go to school for, you get educated for, certified on, something that you might have a license on. When you graduate from college, what is it that you learn? What tools are you using? If you're a welder, if you're a forklift driver, you drive a forklift. I'm a bilingual person, so having another language, that's a hard skill because I had to learn how to speak English. So it's really good for you to actually make sure that you focus it on what position you're working for. Sometimes you're going to have to change some things. So I usually say, make sure that your skills are mirroring the description of the job that you're applying for, and use keywords. That way you include them on your resume. It'll pop out because an employer will take 3 minutes minimum usually to look at your resume, and he'll decide if it's going to go on a yes pile or in a no pile. Okay. And then you have your education, and that will go usually at the bottom. I usually tell our customers or even students, if you turn in a resume and it's been 3-4 weeks and you have not gotten a bite because it's like fishing for you to get the interview, then I would change it depending on what the position is, the education on top or the training on top. So you can change it however you like, but usually it goes at the bottom. And again, you start just like the work history, you're going to start with the most recent education. Anything that's going to date you. Like I had people that graduated from high school in 75 and they went to college back in 95 or 93, or a lot of that stuff you can put on there, leave the year out if it's very, very far back. So if it's recent, then leave it there. But your most recent education, if you have certifications, licenses, anything that you have to renew, make sure that if you add it on training and certifications, because you can add that part separately as well, make sure that it's the most recent. Make sure that it's up to date. If it's already expired, don't put it on the resume. You can't really do anything with it. Now, you can, in the interview, and we'll talk about that, you can bring that up, that you were certified and you're planning on renewing the certification, OSHA, or anything like that, depending on what type of job you are actually going for. All right, now that we've discussed certain points, what is a resume and what the purpose of the resume is and the parts of the resume, now we're going to talk about types of resume. I'm having an issue with my mouse. Okay, types of resume. We have 3 different types of resume. There's actually more. There's a federal resume as well. You have chronological, you have functional, and combination. And we're going to discuss each one of these. What are the purpose of each one of these types of resumes? So I'm going to show you. It's going to be very boring because it's just a lot of lettering. There's no pictures. I like pictures actually. So let's start with the chronological. And I'm going backwards here. Bear with me. I'm trying to get this little square of where I can see everybody out of the way because I can't see my information. Okay, so with a chronological, as you can see, there's a sample, and the sample comes straight from the workforce. And so you have the name, JB, job seeker, and you can see that the name is larger in bold. Then you have address, phone number, and email. And you can do it one at the bottom of you can start with your name, and then under that, continue. This is kind of like a different template, but this is also very nice. And you have an objective. And on the chronological, you can see here is the most common and traditional. Employers usually prefer it, believe it or not. And even in Work in Texas, the first Work in Texas is our job search engine that you can sign up to look for work. And when you enter your information, it builds your chronological order resume as well. And so this is what it looks like. And like I was telling you, you have your experience or work history, and then you're going to bold that. You're going to enter the company name, where it is, then the date, and then you have your title and then your duties. And you're going to continue doing that same pattern all the way down. It has to look uniform. I think when you get something that's uniform, it looks nice. Do not use a font size smaller than a 10 or larger than a 12 unless you're going to use it for your name and for the titles like objective or experience or education. You can do that. I usually bold that, do a little larger, and I even underline it just to separate the areas. And this type of resume, the chronological, is best to use when there are no gaps in your work history. So if you've had the same type of work in the same field, this is a good resume to have. And again, it's your resume. I never use the chronological order resume. I always use a functional resume, which we're going to talk about here next. Any questions on the chronological order resume? Okay.
One question. I
Yes,
noticed
ma'am.
that resume had, it wasn't in black ink. Is it, are we supposed to do black ink or?
It is. I did it for aesthetics, just for the PowerPoint.
Okay.
So it wouldn't look so black and white.
Okay.
But yeah, it should be in black ink. You're going to do it on your computer for sure. Nothing handwritten. Thank you. Now let's go to the functional resume, which is the second resume that I mentioned earlier. This is my favorite, by the way. And it just looks, to me, it just looks neater. You have your information at the top again, your objective, right? Then you have all of your skills, and then your work experience and your education at the bottom. To me, it just looks easier on the eye when you look at it. And I usually do 0.5 on the margins instead of 1 incher. The more information you have, the further you should go on the margin. So 0.5, if you're going to go to 2 papers, no more than 2 papers. I had a customer that every time I printed her resume, it was 9 pages. An employer does not have time to read 9 pages. That will go on the no pile. So I would concentrate on the first 10 years. And if it's just too much information, go with an 11 font, 0.5 on the margin, and try to fit some things that it looks at least, and leave some spaces. Don't overcrowd it with capitalization, because nowadays, you know, when you capitalize, it seems like you're screaming at people. My boss does that all the time. And my girls do that, say that all the time. Mom, why are you screaming at me? I said, oh, I didn't know. I didn't know. And it's just all capitalized. Don't capitalize. Don't use any personal information like marital status on your resume. Don't include any references, copies of transcripts or letters or anything. We're going to talk about a reference page separately. I know back in the day when I was going to school and I got my first job and I had to do a resume, it would say at the very bottom or end, references upon request. No longer is that used. Now they ask you for a reference page, and I will show you what that looks like here in a little bit. Let's move to the next type of resume. And this is my least favorite. I just never have gotten it, but it has a purpose. This is the combination resume. So this is for when you have long employment gaps. There are people that maybe work just permanent jobs, and so they work maybe 6 months in one place. We call those job hoppers, by the way, in the workforce. And so it shows that you don't have a particular career path. You've just worked in different things. So this also works for people who are desiring to change careers. And you might have a career, 3 jobs to the same career, and then you're wanting to change. So then you're going to concentrate on using the combination. Also, job seekers that, let me read this down here. Job seeker has experience that is related but not linked to the desired position. So you have experience, but it's not linked to the position that you want. So you might want to use a combination because you can actually do some of your qualifications and add those skills on there. And again, the objective is optional. I have a coworker, her name is Michelle. She used to teach the resume workshop at the workforce. I did the interview all the time, and she hated the objective, and we always argued about it. But I thought the objective is very needed. And she said, no, the cover letter it's important. I always say, if the employer asks you for a cover letter, or if you want to be extra, I'm usually pretty extra, then you'll add then the cover letter on there. And we'll talk about the cover letter here in a little bit and what the purpose of it is as well. Any questions on the sample combination resume? Okay, moving on. Let me see if I can get this going because my clicker is not working. Okay, so I talked to you about the cover letter and that sometimes employers will send it to you. I always say, always have a USB or a thumb drive where you can have your resume already done, maybe in two styles, maybe chronological, possibly maybe functional. You can have a reference page already made, and we'll talk about that here in a second as well. And you can have a cover letter rough draft. That way, if they ask you for it, you already have it. And so this is an example of a cover letter. It's going to have 3 parts to it, but let's read what the cover letter is supposed to do for you. So it should accompany your resume. I say not always, but if you want to do it, if you want to add it, go ahead. Help you stand out from the other applicants, and I can see why, because it adds a little bit more information about your accomplishments on top of the resume that you're giving them. And they get another look into who you are with the cover letter. And then it shows the employer why you would be the perfect candidate for that specific job. And so what the letter really is this 3 parts. You're going to write to the person. It's pretty formal, as you can see. You're going to enter your information just like the resume. And then you're going to have the date, obviously, like it's there. And to whom are you writing it to? Is it to a person or is it to a company? And then you're going to dedicate it to the person. And you're going to start with an opening statement as you being interested on that position. That's going to be the first paragraph. You're going to write something about, hey, like it says here, I'm writing a response to the current opening. You have advertised and work in Texas, or et cetera, et cetera. The second paragraph, you're going to add your experience and why would you be good for that position. And at the end is something along the lines, I'm looking forward to meeting you, in a way. Okay, so that adds a little bit like a oomph to that resume. And so I can see why employers might keep that, because it gives them a broader look into the person that's applying for the job. Any questions on the cover letter? Okay. Well,
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
With the cover letter, is there like an ideal 3 paragraph, or, you know, if you have more to say, is there just an ideal letter size?
Yes, just an ideal letter, and it shouldn't be too long. 3 paragraphs is usually what we advise, and also the samples that we have. You know, there are some people that are more formal than others, but keeping it short, sweet, and to the point is the thing, because again, it's 30 seconds that they see your resume. They have to read a letter too. So you don't want them to go, I don't have time for this. Time is money. And sometimes they have 75 resumes that they have to review by the end of the day. And so your resume is going to stand out, but three paragraphs, short, sweet, and to the point. It's what you should do and keep. No longer than that.
And would the cover letter be sort of like a way for them to get to know your personality?
Yes, you can.
Representative of that?
Absolutely. I mean, if you have humor, again, I am not a formal person by any means. So my letter, I would write a letter in this sequence, but I might put something funny in there, maybe with the exclamation point. I won't write LOL or anything like that. I'll keep it very professional. But if anything, yes, I would add something like that if you can get away with it. If not, keep it formal. Keep it formal. They'll get to see that probably in the interview. Okay. So now that we understand what is a resume, okay, the purpose of the resume, the parts of the resume, hopefully, right? I'm not giving you a test after this. You're
We
going
have
to get credit for this.
question.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the question is, instead of using Mr. or Mrs., would to whom it may concern be appropriate, or is there another term to use?
If you don't have a specific person to whom you're going to write it to, it'll be fine. You would have the company name, and you can refer it to whom it may concern, or to the human resources department, or the hiring manager. It'll be fine. You would have the company name, and you can refer it to whom it may concern. Did that answer the question? Or the hiring manager. Did that answer the question? Are we good? All right. Moving on. All right. Are we good? All right. Moving on. And again, you know me, I love a quote. So I'm going to read this one by Benjamin Franklin. It takes many good deeds to build a good reputation, and only one bad one to lose it. I love a quote. I'm getting feedback really bad. So it takes many good deeds to build a good reputation, and only one bad one to lose it.
Denise, if you'll turn something down. Because we're coming from your end there. Thank
All right.
you.
Let me read it again. It takes many good deeds to build a good reputation, and only one bad one to lose it. And I want to talk about references, okay? Just like recommendation letters, reputation is very important. You know, people are going to always remember the bad things. And so because you always get asked for a reference page, it's always good to have to build bridges when you leave from one place to another. And so when you ask for a reference, especially from a former employer, it should be a good one. If not, of course, you're not going to ask. But mostly they ask you for for 3 references. And this is what a reference page looks like here. Let me move this to the side. And it's going to be the same pattern that you would do for the resume, for the cover letter. It's your name. It's going to be bigger. It's going to be bold. No abbreviations, right? You're going to have your address. You're going to have your phone number. You're going to have your email. Then you're going to entitle references. Here, references is screaming at you. You can write it in all caps if you want to, but I usually bold it, and sometimes I underline it. So you're going to entitle references, and then you're going to start with the references, and you're going to actually align them like so in the middle of the paper so it doesn't look so empty. And you would do 3 references. Most times they'll ask you for professional references. So what is a professional reference? Well, a professional reference would be maybe a prior manager, a counselor. It could be a professor. It could be a supervisor. It could be your pastor. And then they might ask you for one personal reference. In personal references, you're not going to use a family member. You're going to use a friend. You can use a neighbor. And so that person is going to talk about how your work ethic is, your personality perhaps, if you're a hard worker, so they'll talk to your work ethic and your character more than anything. Make sure, even though you know that the person would not mind if you put him down as a reference, that you do common courtesy and ask them first. You know how many times I had people that would put me down as a reference and I had no idea. And it's not that it bothered me, but it caught me by surprise and I would be very confused and I didn't know what to say. So it comes across like I don't know the person at all. Make sure that you know the first name and last name. A lot of people, you just learn their nickname. I have a neighbor and she's a counselor over a counselor over in Belton. And I thought this whole time her name was Coco. And her name is Yvonne. And not that I used her as a reference, but just to let you know, her name is Coco Williams. And I thought, that's not her name. So I asked, is Coco Williams here? I said, Coco Williams. We have an Yvonne Williams. So when I went to see it, it was Coco. So I didn't know that was her first name. So make sure that you know the whole name of the person, that you get either you're not going to get their personal address, you're going to get their business address, and then you're going to use their phone number, their email, and then what is the relationship to you? Is it a former supervisor? Is it former co-worker from the company? Was it a former team leader that you had? That way they can speak on your character and on your work ethic. And so here you have it, you have the email at the very end as an example. So however you want, I used to write their name and then I would in parentheses after their name would put what was the relationship to me. So this is not written on stone that you have to do it exactly like this. It's just a sample. And you can change it around a little bit as long as you stick to the same font. And everything, again, applies also to the cover letter and to the reference page. Make sure you keep it to one page and that you don't use a whole bunch of different fonts. You stick to the same font and also to the same size. So no smaller than a 10 and no larger than a 12. Okay? And so let's go back a little bit and review what we talked about before we go into our next point, which is going to be interviewing. So we started with what is a resume, right? It's really what represents you without you being there. What is the purpose of the resume? The purpose of the resume is what? I wish I had the chat here so I can actually see, but the purpose of the resume is to get an interview.
Get them information about what
Get
we've
an
done.
interview.
And stand right.
Okay, and then the parts of the interview, we started with, you have your contact information, right? You have your objective or cover letter that you're gonna add to that. You're gonna have your work history, you have your skills, and then you have your education. And then make sure that you give it to someone to review it. Don't depend on autocorrect. Show it to your coworker. Show it to a family member that knows English really well, and you can actually have them check it for typos. Then you have the types of resume: chronological, functional, right? And combination. You're going to pick whichever you want. Then you have the cover letter, and then you're going to have the reference page. And then we are done with the first part, which is interviewing, resume, I'm sorry. So let's move on to interviewing. I'm hoping I have time, don't I?
You have time.
Okay. So here's the interviewing part. I don't know about you, but for me, the most nerve-wracking part of job seeking was the interview part. And I am very outgoing and I talk to everybody at the ATV line, but interviewing makes me feel like I'm on a loop. Everybody is looking at me and I get very confused. I forget everything. And so that's why it is important to prepare. What is an interview? Let's talk about that quickly because I feel like I have about 20 minutes to cover all this information. Oop. Oh, I'm having an issue with my little clicker here. Right. What is an interview?
We have a question
Oh,
about
yes.
any recommended fonts.
I would say Arial is a good one. Nothing that is too fancy, that is you're able to read it. I like Calibri also. It's a good one for the resumes. If my boss sees my PowerPoint, I will get in trouble because it's a little fancy for a PowerPoint. as well. Was that it? Are we good?
Any more questions?
Okay, we're good? All right. So what is an interview? And an interview, I'm going to read it exactly how it is on the definition. The best way to think of an interview is as a focused conversation where you and the hiring manager are exchanging information in order to come to a decision. So in other words, you're going in to talk to someone to see if they're going to hire you. In simple words. But what is the purpose of the interview? It's really to get the job. So we started with the resume, which is the hook to get the interview, right? Then you go to the interview to then get the job. So all this calls for preparation. And again, because I love quotes, I'm sorry I have so many of them, but I love them. Howard Ruff said, it wasn't raining when Noah built the ark. And that is very short and simple, but what does it say? You have to get ready, because when Noah was building the ark, right? He was getting ready for something that he could not see. And I'm not going to get into like church or anything right now, but what it means is that we have to be prepared. And so when you're preparing, it's like when you're taking a test. I remember in college when I studied, I was studying, I would have it all right here, and I just wanted to spill it all on the paper because I was ready for it. But I always over prepared than under prepared. Always prepare, over prepared than under prepared. And so when the test came, I thought it was easy because I over prepared. When it comes to interviewing, you're going to have to over prepared, meaning that you're going to have to practice a lot. So steps to remember when preparing for a job interview. And I'll go through these. There's a lot of information here, so bear with me. Now, you start first by reviewing the company. And how do you do that? Well, you're going to go to their website, or if you know someone who works there. What are you going to look for? Well, motto, mission statement. Those are important. Even if they don't ask you, you need to know. What are they about? You know, they always have about us on their website. Every website has about us. And it tells you the beginning of a company. It tells you how they started. Why are they doing what they're doing? So make sure you know what their passion is and know exactly what they're doing when they started, who the CEO is. Because if they ask you, why do you want to work here? I'm going to say, hey, your mission statement is awesome. You don't have to learn it verbatim. Just tell them, this is what it says and it resonated with me. How good is that going to come across? Because nobody else actually learned the mission statement. Nobody else learned the motto of the company. So that puts you ahead of the last person that was there that did not actually memorize it. Okay. And so the website would tell you a lot of information about that company. You can also go visit. Now with COVID, you can't. But some offices, depending on what you're going to do, have, I think, a 360 or 380 view, and you can see pictures of the staff. And if it's a restaurant or a store, you know who the manager is, who the cashiers are, who the servers are, who the cooks are, and you can get familiarized by actually visiting. Also, learn more about the job itself. What is it that you're going to be doing? What are you applying for? Does it mirror something else that you've done in the past? How good are you in those things that they're asking for? Have you done it before? Do you need to train more? Do you need to read a little bit more about it? Okay. Know yourself. And I tell everybody this. I go, well, I know myself. But know yourself in terms of what is it that you're applying for? And are you able to do what they're asking? So are you a good communicator? Are you a good leader? Okay. Can you handle how good are you under pressure? Are you a good problem solver? So think about those things in aspects of, okay, if I want somebody to work for me, what do I want them to have? And so you're going to put yourself there and make sure that you know yourself before you go so that you can talk about, and I'm talking more about the skills and things like that in reference to the soft skills, your interpersonal skills also. Don't get a job working with people in customer service if you're not a people person. You will make a lot of people miserable, and you will be miserable yourself. So I usually say, ask for stalker or ask for somebody to work in the back. I complain every time I go somewhere and they are rude because I practice customer service every single day and I teach it. And they might be having a bad day, but a lot of employers don't even think about it. They put people, and that's why we need to learn soft skills. And that's what we teach the kids nowadays, soft skills, how to greet someone when they come through the door, how to shake a hand, how to make eye contact. All those things are important. Your body language, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Dress for success, I have a separate slide for that. Prepare to answer questions. Go online, look for the position you're applying for. What are questions they might ask you? Because I don't know those. I can't give them to you, but it's part of you getting prepared is your research part. You have to research questions too, so that way you can practice and have an idea how you're going to answer them. YouTube is amazing when it comes to stuff like that. Salary and pay rate, labor market information, Texas Workforce Commission. If you know what they want to pay, if they don't mention it, that way you're prepared. You got to see what the labor market information says about Central Texas according to that position at entry level, at intermediate level, and at advanced level. And that way you have an idea to be able to negotiate in case it doesn't say what they're going to pay you. Okay? And that's why I'm going to say you can go to www.salary.com, and it also has a lot of information on different jobs and the labor market information of what they pay in this area. Any questions? I'm going to keep going. And if there's any questions, please just let me know. All right, so prepare to ask questions. This is very important. When I get nervous, I forget. And then when I'm walking out the door, that was me. Man, I forgot to ask. Okay, so prepare your questions beforehand. And I usually say, copy them down, have them in a little notebook or in a portfolio, and you're going to take them with you and you're going to get ready to ask. And one of the things, and at least have 5 questions. What's a typical day around here? Could be a question you can ask. What's the culture in this place like? You can ask that. But always ask this. When can I expect to hear from you? Because that will show the employer that you can follow instructions, even though it's something so small. If they say today is Wednesday, is today Wednesday? Yes, today is Wednesday. So today is Wednesday, and they tell you, we're going to call you next Wednesday in 7 days. Please do not call them back again until the 7 days if they don't get with you, because you get a lot of employers that do not give you the courtesy to tell you they went with another person. Some people do, some people don't. So you wait those 7 days because you're following instructions, and you're going to call them and find out if they were done with the interview process and that you had interviewed and you wanted to know where they were at with this process. That's why you follow instructions and you follow up during that time, so you won't bite your nails off. You're going to be researching other companies, practicing your questions and everything else, because it's a preparation process all the time. Also, we talk about a 20 to 30 second elevator speech, and usually YouTube calls it a speech. And that's going to be a commercial about you. And I say commercial because it's really you marketing yourself in 30 seconds. It's really a small paragraph. And this goes with this question. It's usually the first one. So tell me a little bit about yourself. When they asked me that, I looked like a deer in headlights because I wasn't ready. I don't know what to say. I don't like talking about myself like that. I mean, I share a lot of things here because it's my experience. But for me to say, I don't know what to say. Usually you start looking up, like the letters are up here, right? But it's very important for you to know this and practice it on the mirror. I used to practice it with my daughters. They would laugh at me. But once they ask you that question, you answer right away, and that sets the whole stage for the rest of the interview. And then mentally prepare. Mentally prepare is very important. I mentally prepare to expose this information today because even though I've done this a lot of times, it's a new platform for me. So you get nervous. So I was thinking that I was Wonder Woman this morning, and I wrote on the board, "You got this." And I put my great lipstick on today and my favorite shoes just to mentally prepare. Whatever is it that you do it. Whether it's prayer, whether it's your favorite song on full blast on the way to the interview, make sure that you get mentally prepared for this interview. Any questions? I don't know why my mouse is not working. I'm sorry.
Your mouse working, you're doing great.
Okay, so bear with me here. Oh, I told you that I was going to talk to you about dressing for success. I'll go very quickly on this. Dressing for success is very important. First impressions are the most important. And I think I was going to read you a quote, but I'm going to skip it because I couldn't get it on my clicker. So hygiene, super important. You'd be surprised how many adults went to work to look for work without taking a shower, in pajamas, even at the HEB line, screaming at their kids. You never know who's going to be behind you or next to you when you're looking for work. Super important to look put together. You don't have to wear anything expensive. I buy everything pretty much secondhand, which I just told you, but it's how you put it together. If you don't know how to put things together, you can go online. There's like tons of websites and apps that would help you put office clothes together, believe it or not, okay? Hygiene is important. Make sure when you get out the car, you look at your nose, you look at your teeth, you look at your mouth, and make sure that if you are a smoker, that you don't smell like an ashtray when you walk in, because it's gonna actually turn a lot of people off. Now, most times, a lot of the companies are smoke-free. And so that might be a turnoff for the interviewer or interviewers. Try your clothes on the night before. I've gained about 5 pounds since COVID started. So my pants today might not have fit. If I would have picked a size 6, they wouldn't have fit today. I had to wear my 8s today. So make sure that you try your clothes on the night before to make sure it looks good, that you're not missing buttons, that you don't have any stains, that you iron it, that your shoes are clean. Even if it's the only pair of shoes you have, clean them. It says a lot about you. Stick with neutral colors, just like you see here on this kids. They have neutral colors. And keep your accessories to the minimum. I'm talking to the women now. I love wearing big accessories and I like wearing bright lipstick. So everything like that, you're going to tone it down for the interview. You want to be the focus, what you're saying, not your yellow shirt, okay? Or your stain that's talking to I don't know if you guys remember a commercial like 20 years ago. It was an interviewer and the guy had a stain on his shirt and the stain was just talking. He could not focus. I think it was a Tide commercial and he could not focus on the interviewer because of the stain. So you want to be the focus of the interview, what you're saying. And perfume and cologne, just aftershave and lotion. A lot of people are very sensitive to fragrance or fragrances and scents. So make sure that you keep that down to a minimum. Make sure that you know where the place is. Get there 15 minutes before, please. And I feel like I'm running out of time. I'm running. I'm going to keep going, okay? So types of interviews, we have the phone interview. All I'm going to say about the phone interview is that's usually actually before you get a face-to-face. And if you're a type A personality like me, that I'm very hyper and I'm always talking and I'm very loud, I'm going to sit down and calm down to talk to this person because I have a lot of energy. When you're a very calm and collected person, I usually call them like phlegmatic. You're just kind of just really stand up and walk around because the inflection in your voice is going to matter because that's what's going to actually be the hook to bring you in so they want to interview you face to face. One-on-one, self-explanatory. What I say about one-on-one is usually if you're walking with someone, I'm going to find something common so that I can familiarize myself with that person, whether it's small talk, the weather, if it's a guy, if it's a lady, hey, I love your shoes, those are really nice. Your earrings are amazing. And then if there's nothing you can connect, go to the office and you're gonna look around for family pictures, pet pictures, collections of something. So you can actually connect with that person before you sit down and it brings down a little bit of the tension. Panel interview, that's more than 2 people. It's very nerve-wracking for a lot of people, but I think the biggest interview panel I had was 12 people for TISD, and I wanted to faint as soon as I walked in. And so panel interviews, you have different people, they ask you different questions, so be ready to connect with those people as soon as you walk in. Make sure you shake a hand. Eye contact, body language, super important. You can say more with your body language than you can say in words. So it's important for you to connect with each one of those people. Be okay with silence. I can talk myself out of a job very quickly by talking because I talk and talk and talk. You're afraid of silence. They're copying stuff down. Take that moment to breathe and get yourself together to answer the next question and pay attention. Group interview, my least favorite. Usually big companies do this. They'll call a whole bunch of people in a room. You have a panel and they ask you the questions in front of someone. And you're going to be, if you're the first one, everybody's going to copy your answers. It's very annoying. Anyways, behavioral, anytime you work with people, you're going to have behavioral questions, which are scenario questions. For scenario questions, just think of problem solving. If you have a problem, what is the problem? How are you going to resolve it? And what are you going to pick? And what was the outcome? So if you think, we call it STAR technique. I didn't include it on here because I would have to be on like 10 more minutes. But just, it's almost like storytelling. And so in behavioral, make sure that if you work with maybe as a counselor, or we work with customers at the workforce or customer service, if a customer actually is rude to you, how will you respond? Sort of like that. So make sure that you know that you have different scenarios already in your mind that you're going to answer to, so you don't have to be thinking, because when you get nervous, you just can't think. So make sure that you prepare and have them ready ahead of time. And then video has become very popular, even more now. Look at me doing a workshop that I used to do with tons of people, doing it on the computer. And I am not computer savvy by any means, and I'm not from a computer era either for a generation. So I've had to learn how to do this. So on video, what I always say is make sure your background is as beautiful as mine. I'm just joking. Make sure it's clean, okay? Make sure your pets are put away. Make sure that you're dressed completely and that you have good lighting. If you have to buy a little ring with light at Walmart, buy it. If you're going to sit in front of a window, make sure that you're in front of the window so the natural light hits your face. And then I have my computer on top of 2 rims of paper, because if not, you're going to be looking down at the computer and then you're going to be seeing all of my wrinkles and my face sagging. It's not the best. So you have to make sure that you try it first and you can see that you're looking, you know, face to face to the interviewer. It looks so much better. Any questions on this part? I'm moving quick. I can't get this to go. My goodness. Okay, here we go. Now, during the interview, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to be racing through this. I'm almost done. All right. So during the interview, make sure you bring the documents. I covered most of that already. List of questions, greet everyone, firm handshake. Your handshake has to be firm, not hard. If you're a guy, take it easy on the women when you shake a hand. If you are a lady, you know, you have those that are just, they give you the hand rag shake, or the overzealous and then your cheeks are shaking. Just give a firm handshake. Engage in small talk if you can, you know, just to break the tension. Be brief with answering questions. Stay positive. Be honest, because it's going to come across. Be yourself. You always have to be yourself. And check your body language. And I already said that. Moving on to the very last part. You made it. So wrapping up the interview. And look how happy this lady is. I would be this happy too. Oops. So make a strong closing statement. I'm having so many issues with this mouse. I'm sorry. Wrapping up the interview, make a strong closing statement. Ask about the next steps that you need to do. Show gratitude. Thank them for the interview. That goes a long way. And then follow up with a thank you note. And I always say, always leave a thank you note, please. This is a very long letter or a thank you letter. If you're formal and you want to write a letter, go ahead. You can handwrite it or type it. I used to buy the Target $1 little cards, and I would write it, and at the end I would show my humor. P.S. I hope you hire me, smiley face, Mara Gomez. And I would thank them, and I would leave it with the receptionist. If you have been communicating by email, by all means, send an email of thank you. You talk about the enthusiasm for the position. Show your personality, just like I say. It's a way to remember you, and it leaves a great final impression. I had a friend that was applying for a job. 12 girls applied for it. She was one of the top 3. They called someone else. That other person called 2 weeks before she was starting that she had found something better, and guess who they called? They called my friend, because I told her to write a thank you note, and I'm going to take the credit for that one. And so she got the job. It actually makes you stand out, because we have lost the art of writing anything or saying thank you. And I want to leave you with this. I don't have time to go through every point that we've gone through, but I want to leave you with, and I want you to see this, you know, the 8 ball where it says offer of employment, don't count on it. and I usually encounter this a lot with our customers and even students, you're going to be prepared, over prepared, and on top of that, you might not get the offer of employment. So I want to tell you that that doesn't mean that you're not intelligent. It doesn't mean that you have no skills. It doesn't mean that your education doesn't matter. It just means that you might not be a good fit for that company, that you might not be a good fit for that team, that you might not be a good fit for that organization. That means there's always something better for you. I hope that today you learned something new. And I felt like I was running a marathon because I was going so fast to finish in time. But if you have any questions, you can send them to Cindy over at CTC. And here's my information. They're going to have it. Maybe Janice can write it on the chat, and then you can send me an email. And if you have any further questions, then you can send them to me. With that said, I'm going to exit, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right, well, Mara, thank you so much. We have learned so much information. We really, truly appreciate it. And Denise will be putting all that information in the comments. Also, our own CTC Career Center has given us some information that we can also put in our comments. You definitely, if you have questions, you can ask us at the library. Reference requests at ctcd.edu. Also, we wanted to say that we have a professional clothes closet that we're going to be loaning students professional clothes for interviews and to start their job, and some giveaway. So
That's good to know.
CTC is here to help you get your job started. Thank you, Mara Gomez, for your amazing information. And now we're going to go ahead and talk about what can you do when you get the job. And moving from that point, we have with us Workforce Solutions of Central Texas, Suzanne Sinke, and she is going to be talking to you guys next. Thank you, Suzanne.
You bet. Thank you. I appreciate the time to be able to be on here. Again, my name is Suzanne Sinke. I work for Workforce Solutions of Central Texas. And just like Ms. Gomez had said, it's with the SOAR program, which is Student Occupation Awareness and Recognition, for those of you that were not on the last presentation. What we're going to bring to you today is, okay, you've gone through the resume process. You've gotten that initial call, you've gone through the interview, now you're starting the job. But some of the hard stuff is just now starting, because, you know, if it's your first job or if it's your fifth or even more so, you know, there's things that you want to consider starting in a new environment, a new job. And that's what I'm going to bring to you today. So I'm going to share my presentation with you. Basically, it's going to be on the concept of job keeping, okay, because it's a very important part of it. Let's see if you got my screen. Send in my presentation.
We see it.
Awesome. I'm just so fearful it wasn't going to show up. So terrific. I'm glad. Okay, so what we're going to talk about is you're hired, now what? So it's how do you basically get off on the right foot when you show up on that first day. Now, a little bit about myself. Miss Mara had much more, interesting information than I do. But one thing I want to tell you is it's not an itch or a tick. I have terrible eyesight, but I hate wearing the glasses because they kill me. So I'm going to go back and forth probably. Hopefully it's not too aggravating. But to get off on the right foot, I tell you, with myself, it's one of the scariest things. It's like that first day of high school when you're going from junior high to high school. First day of a job, that night before, has got to be, for me anyway, it was always terrifying. It's like, what are the people going to be like? And I have to remind myself, I actually got this job based on merit. I have to assume they want me, otherwise they wouldn't have hired me. And basically, my success is their success. So they want me to be there. So you really have to the idea that way. Try to be positive about it. But with that, we're going to go over a couple of things that will be commonplace for many of the jobs and a few things, hey, that might help you stand out just a little bit better than the next guy. Okay, so meeting with your manager. We'll go over taking responsibility, following company rules and policies, which is a biggie, staying positive, listening to instructions, getting along in the workplace. Wow, that's an important one. Handling conflict, which I think goes hand in hand with the one right before it, and then starting fresh. So there's a thing called onboarding that many jobs do whenever you first start, and they could vary from job to job, but it's basically introducing you to the people you're going to need to be introduced to, forms that you need to fill out, things that you need to initially do to become part of the group, the company, the organizational group. So part of that is going to be meeting, obviously, with your manager. Now, there's a few things you need to get informed on before you can be successful in your job. You have to know, okay, what mistakes to avoid, and I'm sure a supervisor is going to be very happy to tell you that, but basically you want to know what is that organization's expectations of you, because if you don't know what they expect, how do you know what to do? And once you find out what they expect of you, how do you know you've created a success unless you know how do they measure that success? Is it by whatever product or service you've got? Is it because of a certain quantity was met, a quality has increased? You know, there has to be some measurement. So unless you know, you won't know if you are successful at your task. So you want to know those mistakes, you want to know those expectations and know the measurements of success, and then meet those timelines that are given to you. Now, I don't know about you, but meeting timelines sometimes can be one of the most difficult tasks because you get yourself all worked up, you're trying to do it right. This is where some of the soft skills that Miss Mara was talking about come in hand with prioritizing things and organizing your day. I mean, I'm a little OCD when it comes to finishing a project, okay? That's one of my weaknesses. I hate to be taken off of something, but hey, it's part of the job. Sometimes you've got to do it. So how I combat that is whatever I got taken off of, I put that on my to-do list up at the top so I don't forget it, because I will forget it. I live by my to-do list. Sometimes it's my calendar, really. But basically, I mark it down and not assume that I will remember it. So that's my system. There's many different systems you could use. It could be like 20 million Post-its and you got one going on top of another one. Hey, it's whatever works for you as long as it works. If not, keep looking. But be able to prioritize and organize yourself really is one of those feats that you've got to find what works best for you, because that's going to help you succeed in the tasks that are your daily tasks that you have to do to, be successful. So my question, even though redundant, it's going to be, how could you show initiative and responsibility at your new workplace? How can you do that? These are things to think about because you're just now starting new. Okay, let's say it's day 2, day 3, day 4, whatever, but you've done the onboarding, now you're at your job. How can you show that initiative and that responsibility? Well, first, show up on time. Now, I come from a military family. I was an Air Force brat. Miss Mara was Army brat, Air Force brat. And it was told to me growing up that to be on time is to be late. To be early is to be on time. Now, I cannot say, I would be lying if I did. I don't always live up to that, but I try. So you want to always try to show up on time. But when that talks about what time your work starts, you need to be in your seat, if it's a seated position, ready to go at that time, not walking through the door. You have to keep in mind, just like an interview, first impressions are important. So basically, the impression you set at your job is the impression people are going to stick to you, that's going to follow you. You know, it's very hard, very difficult to take away from impressions that are already set. So you want to be the one that shows up on time, the one that wants to learn the job. They give you all the resources available to you. They tell you what the job is. It is your responsibility to actually learn it. I mean, nobody can teach it to you. Now, if you just show up for a paycheck, that's what you're going to get out of it. It's just not going to be fulfilling. You're not going to be as successful as you could. But when you actually learn the tasks that you're doing, the big picture sometimes of your organization, sometimes that's what can actually make things click a little bit better. Why you do some of the tasks you do. You might think they're ridiculous or redundant of something else that's being done, but maybe in the big picture with somebody else's task that they do, it works and coincides with each other perfectly. So being able to find that out, look and see what other people's jobs are, talk to them. You know, when you're hopefully not going to be, just quiet and talk to anybody. You have to build relationships. Relationships are really help you at your job. It can help you learn that job as well. Being proactive is important. You don't want the boss to have to come in every day and say, okay, Birdie, go ahead, fly, do your job. When they've already told you what the task is, they've given you all the resources you need. And if you have a question, that's your responsibility to ask. I mean, how are they going to know unless you tell them that you don't understand something? You want to be honest with that. There was something that I've spoken to, not to minimize it, but it was with a middle school that really came to light that I know a lot of adults do. If someone takes credit for something that someone else does, if you're in a team, how would that make you feel? You want to be honest about things. This is going to set the tone on how people see you. So if you take credit for somebody else, they're not going to trust you. The trust is not going to be there. And if your boss finds out, there's definitely not going to be trust built there. So what if you're the one that's put in charge of like thousands of dollars worth of equipment? You may not be keeping that position very long. When trust is in question, it's very, very difficult to build it back up. Be honest. Be honest in what you've done, what you've said, what product you put out there. Own your mistakes. Especially here you are, a brand new employee. You're not expected to get 100% right. It's not expected that you're not going to have questions. So if you mess up on something, own up to it. Better to own up to it earlier rather than later. You could actually save a little bit of money for the boss. The longer you take sometimes, let's just say it's a production type job. There might be a quantity of product that's now in question that's going to be wasted. Had you said something earlier, you could have saved money. So certainly try to own up to any kind of mistakes that you're aware of as early as possible. People will tend to trust that you're going to say something if there's a problem, because that's the kind of team member I want. I don't expect everybody to be perfect, but certainly say something because maybe I can help you. So own your mistakes. Keep that trust with people because that is involved in, mistakes as well. And it's a learning opportunity. As long as you learn from your mistakes, I mean, if you're brand new and you've made a mistake, oh, well, how do I do it the right way? And then do it right from there on. That was an opportunity that you took and ran with. Okay, it's all about how you effectively treat the situation after it happens. So are you going to learn from it or just say, oh my goodness, I'm so upset, and not figure out how to not do it again? So you want to look at it and actually learn from it. Volunteer to help. I'm going to put that in two aspects. Volunteering to help coworkers, number one, if you have the ability and the knowledge to effectively help your coworker, that will show great teamwork. And, it might build more of a relationship that you have with your team members. Once you have a relationship with somebody, there's another opportunity for that trust to be built. Again, with you being new, this is a wonderful opportunity to do that, okay, when you can jump in and help. And also volunteering outside of your organization, if you have that opportunity. There's many organizations that are philanthropic. They give charitable donations to other organizations. And if you can volunteer to help, you're part of the community. You're showing that you're a, I don't want to say the cheesy term, a go-getter, but you're willing to jump in there and help where it's best needed. And all of that is going to help build that impression that we're talking about. And overall, having a great work ethic. It's almost the same as the integrity thing. Facebook memes everywhere about it, doing the right thing when nobody's looking. The soft skills that Ms. Gomez has mentioned, all those skills that, you can't really be taught, you can actually make them better yourself, but no one really teaches them. An employer really wants to know that the person that they've hired has great integrity, great work ethic, someone that they can depend on. Once they feel that, then they're going to be able to possibly recognize you for maybe a promotion. I mean, everybody wants to do a good job, I feel, and get the opportunity to make a little bit more of this, a little bit more greenback. But I tell you what, it's not all about the money. Doing the right thing when no one's looking, doing the job because it's the right thing to do. That's what you're hired for. That's what's expected of you. That's what an employer really wants to see. With teammates, who are they going to put in charge then in front of other teammates when a promotion comes in? Somebody that they can trust can actually deal with other people as well. So, you don't want to segregate yourself away from the team. Try to always stay separate, be a part of things. And at first, when you first start, it's a little scary. You kind of have to force yourself a little bit. But like with anything, once you do it, you've broken the ice. It's fine. You can build some really great relationships with people at work. You really can. And Mark, great example. I have a great teammate. We do anything to help each other because we know we would do that regardless. It's just, I know that's her nature. She knows she can trust on me, and we help each other. And our product hopefully will show for that. So another biggie is following company rules and policies. Oh my goodness. Okay, so be punctual. We talked about that. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. Be punctual. They're paying you for that time. To meet and exceed the expectations. Wow. You find out what's expected of you. You find out the resources you can use to do your job. Meet them, because you're going to be given what's either called a feedback or a personal evaluation. They're called different things, but some of them are preemptive to your yearly evaluation. They're just kind of like feedbacks to let you know this is what I'm thinking is going on with your performance. They kind of let you know where you may or may not need to improve. So your yearly evaluation can turn out fine. Well, this gives you a great opportunity. Find out what you're doing that they're saying everything's great. No need to work any harder on that because you're exceeding everything. Maybe you might want to look at this. And they tell you a certain, spot to work on. Now you have definitely been advised because of a follow-up, because of the feedback. Know where your expectations were met and what you need to work on so you can exceed them, because all of that follows you. And sometimes with ratings, which is basically the grade for your evaluation, sometimes pay raises come with those, but certainly it sets an impression again. So it's not necessarily one thing or another. It could be a group of how you communicate with your group of people. Do you try to do a good job? Do you possibly exceed the expectations for the company for them to look and actually recognize you for a possible promotion? Now, the employee handbook, not every company has this, but with an employee handbook, It's usually given when you do onboarding, when you first start a job. If they have one, they'll give it to you usually then. And it gives you all those written rules and policies that they feel strongly about. Now, granted, there'll be some in-house unwritten rules you'll find out as you go along. But let's just say, for instance, media. You have some media rules at this place of work. So it could deal with your cell phone, certain websites on your laptop, forwarding documentation, that sort of thing. If it's something that you do and you are stopped because you did it and they want to meet with you and tell you, hey, you did this wrong, basically you're in trouble for it. The term "I didn't know" won't actually work. You need to take advantage and actually read that employee handbook, even though some of it might be boring, because the "I didn't know" won't suffice when you have it right in front of you. Okay, so take an opportunity to look at that. And then when you start your job, pay attention to the coworkers, pay attention to the culture within the organization or the department that you're in to find out what's acceptable or not. And again, if you have a question, ask. Unless you ask, you won't know. That'd be my tagline for today. If you don't ask, you don't know. So, and again, observe coworkers, stay within the boundaries. Okay, don't try to go so far out of the common norms, especially when you're new. You know, and that could be up to a year. Stay within boundaries. Follow the guidance that you're given. It's there for a reason. If, you know, if they change it, that's fine. But for that period of time, follow what's there. Now, this is a part that I feel really strongly about myself because I kind of fight with it a little bit. So have you ever been in a room with a group or a team that you have to work with, and someone walks in, my old lady saying would be a negative Nelly. I think the new way of saying it's Debbie Downer. And heaven forbid, somebody said the other day it was called Karen. I have no idea where that came from. That's a new one for me. But when they walk into the room, that almost rubs off like wildfire. You know, it may be just to the point where somebody's like, oh, I can't believe I got to sit in this room with this person griping all the time. They're never happy with anything. And it just runs rampant. And now everybody's basically like that. Well, the same can be said about positivity. You know, your attitude is just basically how you feel or see something or someone. So the way your perception of things, the way you perceive things to be, the way you see them, creates your attitude. Your attitude can change your environment. It can motivate people. You know, it's created by you. So if it's created by you, that means you can change it. Okay? So now let's rewind for a second. Your perceptions, that's where the change would happen. It's kind of like the half glass, or the glass half full, glass half empty. You have your optimist, your pessimist. The pessimist is not necessarily wrong. It's just how they see things. They see things negatively first. That's what sticks out. So if you can be a positivity influencer, try to make that team where it rubs off. You even be the one that they look to and it rubs off to have positivity go through the team. You know, try not to complain, accept those challenges that are given to you. My goodness, avoid the gossip. I'm just as guilty, but I have to think about it sometimes. You know, when you have negative gossip, it rubs off and it kind of creates a life of its own sometimes. And when that person might find out that you spoke about them, there's definitely a rift in the room at that point. And it's really difficult to work well with folks that don't get along. It's much easier if you can find that common ground where you can have an agreement, a common ground where you can work together and build from that point. So whatever kind of affirmations you have to give for the day, whatever sayings like I'm going to be great today, or I'm going to get along with everybody, or this presentation is going to go wonderfully. I see it at the end. It's great. whatever affirmations you have to use to make it work out and to be positive, I say do it, because in the positivity is created, you as an individual and or the group will become more adaptable, more flexible, certainly more creative. You think more outside the box. And with all that, it equals more productivity. So imagine being the boss. If you're the boss, isn't this someone that you want? Someone that can be more productive, get along with everybody, adapt to change. And that's who I'm going to want to be in charge of other people. Someone that promotes that. So it's certainly something that's can very much make or break certain situations. So as cheesy as it sounds, positivity not only can change how your work life will develop, it can change into your personal life as well. There was research done from a university, and they had their students for 21 days. I don't know why it was not 20, but for 21 days, they had every student write down 3 things that they were grateful for. And each day it had to be something different. So at the end of it all, after they had to kind of fight and think of these 3 things, it's like, oh, I got to think of it again. At the end, it just came to them. It was so easy to look at, so easy to see, because we get ourselves in these habits of being negative. And it's just how we see that glass being empty. If we perceive it a little bit differently, imagine how we can change our life on all these different things we look at in a slightly different way. So when you are positive and you're at the job and they're telling you how to do it, you want to make sure and listen and not assume that you know better how to do something, that, yeah, I got it. Because you may not know the way that they do it. Maybe there's a different method they do. So you don't want to assume that you know. You want to get all that information out that they have to give you. Ask questions. That's my big one. If you don't know, if you don't ask the questions, you're not going to know. Be open to new ways to do things, but also follow up. If you don't follow up, you don't know how effectively you met that expectation. Because if they say that's exactly how we need it done, or everything was great if you could just finish this way, perfect. Now I understand my task much better. So being able to do that, think outside the box, pay attention to them, what they say, make sure and listen to it all, be an effective listener, will make a difference on possibly if you're going to be successful at the task they've given you. Now, getting along in the workplace, that's kind of a biggie, right? Again, it's much easier to work with someone than against someone. So when you don't get along necessarily, it's very difficult to effectively communicate with each other. So sometimes you just have to find that common ground. So to start off with, since it's a new job, you want to make sure and try to build some relationships. You can still have a relationship with your manager, which might be a different type of relationship than with your coworker. Doesn't mean you don't have a relationship. Having that helps build trust, helps you get to know them. You're a little more at ease to speak with them. When you give a little of yourself, they give a little bit back. That's how you build relationships, and that's how ultimately you build trust. So trying to build that relationship with your supervisor is good. What kind of relationship is it that you want them to know you for? Hopefully, it's going to be someone that's willing to do the job, they can depend on, be loyal. These are hard things to come by, and they're not always a given. You have to make a little effort to show this of yourself. If you just come to work and you just clock in or just show up, do the work, leave, you don't talk to anybody, you're actually holding yourself back. And it's not just the product at hand that you're trying to create, but you're holding yourself back with growth and actually happiness that you could have at the job, because it could go much easier. You could be much happier, more fulfilled if you allow yourself to be open for that. And getting along with your peers, that's kind of an important one. And I go back to the complaining And mainly that one sticks in my mind because I had an employment one time, and I will admit I did not stay there, and it was because of the atmosphere. It was a room that I was in with 4 women that were only separated by partitions. So we didn't have walls and doors to separate us. And I warned them ahead of time because I could kind of hear them. I said, man, my eyes are terrible. My ears, excellent. I hear everything. So then 2 doesn't like 1, and everybody's trying to like me and get me on their team, and I don't want to pick sides. I'm trying to be nice to everybody. And it really gets difficult when all you're doing is hearing the back and forth at each other like little cat fights, or the minute one walks off, you have everybody, they're just talking so much about this other person. And it's not a healthy environment to be in. How can you do your job? How can you trust passing off your task to the next step and know that they're going to handle it effectively? There's always going to be that question. You cannot act that way at a job. You have to be professional. Professionalism is not just how you look. It's the look. It's, do you walk the walk? Do you talk the talk? It's all of it rolled up together. So do you look the part? Do you know your job? Do you do your job well? And to do it well, you have to communicate with everybody. So you need to find that fine line where you can actually have something that you're on common ground somehow. And talking with customers should be a give me, depending on the job, of course. Now, if you're in a room by yourself, okay, maybe there's not a face-to-face customer contact, but pretty much everybody has some type of a customer, some type, whether it's you've got to do it for your boss or you have customers coming in buying something. There's somebody you have to make happy, and you can't always say what you want to say. There are ways to say things. You can't always spout out what's going through your head. You might not have that job long enough to worry about it. So, when it comes talking to customers and, again, coworkers, you can't just say what you want. Maybe you need to think it out. Don't be so spontaneous. Maybe you want to make sure, maybe get some perspective from somebody else. How did you see this situation happen? And because if they tell you something, you're like, uh-oh, and you find out you were wrong, if you've already said something to the person, you can't take it back. Make sure you know what you are going to be saying is right. And personally, I would wait, make sure you're right, handle it, think about the best way to handle it before you do something you'll regret. And practicing good social skills, basically just your interpersonal communication with others, whether it's on the job, within the company, just being able to practice those good social skills. It could be as simple as small talk. You don't want to leave someone out of a communication of some sort. So if you walk in a room, you don't want to say hi to 4 people and purposely leave one out. That's just not the right thing to do. Be considerate. You don't have to go to lunch with them, but you do need to be able to work with everyone. You need to have that working relationship and be capable of a good one. And balancing work and personal life, the main thing this is talking about is certainly your work and personal life. Of course, you're not supposed to have to take your work at home all the time. Maybe there might be those moments when you need to, but you need to find that fine line where you're able to separate. You know where your boundaries are, okay? So now if it comes to your personal life, sometimes it affects the work a little bit, but you don't want it so much so that it affects the quality of the product you put out. And the same thing, if somebody keeps coming to you, I need you to do this, I need you to do this. If you need to talk to your boss and ask them what their policy is, that's one thing, you can do that. But otherwise, look and see if it's something realistic you can take care of. If you can and it interferes with nothing and you don't mind doing it, tell them, okay, but what if it does? Instead of saying no, which you can certainly do if you absolutely cannot do it, but you could say, hey, do you need this today? Because if I can do it tomorrow, that's fine. I've just got pressing stuff I need to take care of. So this is where that prioritizing and organizing comes into play. So it's up to you if you can do it and say, yeah, but let me relook at the priority I have. Or you may have to say, I'm so sorry, I really can't fit it in right now. You know, maybe you can go ask whoever the other teammate is. And then handling conflict. It's never fun. It is not fun when you have conflict. And I tell you what, I fight with this one. You know, I am not the perfect person at doing this. I try very hard. So it is an effort that I make. It doesn't come, you know, automatically for me. I have to actually make that effort to do things correctly because I kind of wear my emotions on my sleeve. So I really have to watch how my nonverbal communication's coming out. What's my body language saying? Is it saying a whole different story than what my mouth is saying? Because you can say things in so many different ways and they might be conflicting with each other. So you want to really kind of watch how you're representing yourself during this time. But certainly if you recognize a conflict, if it's something that you could actually find a resolution for right then, and it is not so big that someone else needs to get involved, handling it sooner rather than later is certainly good. It keeps that snowball effect from happening. Like a snowball way uphill is small. As it rolls and gains time, it gets bigger and bigger. Now you've got this big old elephant to take care of now. You know, so if you can find a resolution, and again, maybe sometimes it's just finding that common ground to start with and work from that. But you have to be open-minded. There's a reason it was a conflict. You know, maybe you came across wrong, maybe they came across wrong, but if you're open-minded to what they have to say, you've got to let them communicate to you. If you're not having effective communication, then you're just giving a speech, okay? And that's not going to fix anything. So you have to have some two-way dialogue here. Allow them to say their side of things. Maybe you change your mind, maybe you don't. But, you know, you can still be assertive. You don't have to necessarily be abrasive, okay? And make suggestions of how it can be fixed. Certainly that's, you know, an ideal where you're trying to find a way to fix things. And you know what? If none of this works, sometimes you have to realize that maybe it was a bigger conflict than it was for you to handle right then. Maybe you don't handle anything right then. You step away from the problem. Go home, think about it, or tell your supervisor right then. Make sure, again, that you're fully understanding what occurred. And acting spontaneously doesn't allow you to do this. So if it was something that was kind of big, it could affect, you know, the work status. You want to maybe get somebody else's perception on what happened or what they saw. And maybe they might say you did something wrong. You're like, wow, I didn't know that happened. I didn't know. Well, if you've already said something, you can't take words back. You can't take your actions back because with every cause, you have an effect. So you have to be very careful how you handle situations sometimes when it is so emotionally involved. People take a lot of these things to heart. So you want to kind of treat them the way you'd want to be treated in such a sensitive situation. So now, talking about whether it's your first job or your 10th job, with each job, it is a brand new opportunity. I'm not even going to say really starting fresh. I'm going to say creating yourself each time. It gives you an opportunity to start over. And so you can start fresh, I guess I will say it, with the new beginnings, because you have to let go of the past. If it has been prior jobs before, let go of that and move forward. I mean, you'd be the only one bringing the extra baggage to the job. If it's your brand new job, that is terrific. You have to realize this can set the tone for everything. Go in with that positive attitude. Decide, who do you want to be? You know, are you going to be the positive influence? Are you going to be the one that they look to maybe, you know, promote? Or is that what you're after? Certainly, line yourself up with other people that are like that. Figure out your goals. If that is what you want, who do you need to find out and learn your job from? maybe some extra parts of the job from. Because then you have a big picture. You know, these are questions you can ask yourself. You know, work on building those relationships. You know, people have to know you before they can formally say this person's great for that job when they're looking to push someone forward. You have to build healthy work relationships to do a job effectively. You just really do, because with that comes the need for effective communication, effective listening. All these different skills are required, and you can't do that with someone you can't do that effectively anyway with someone that you refuse to relate to at work if you have problems. So you just have to let go of that and try to find common. So that's basically the information I had on this particular presentation. If there are any questions that are related to this, I am happy to answer any of them. Again, if there's a takeaway from this that I feel I push, man, positive attitude can make a difference with everything. And it is always a work in progress for me. And so I think with everybody, no one's ever fully met their capability. They can always keep improving. This is true. But that's the one thing, that's the takeaway. It can change. Okay, I'm going to say it. It can change your life. So that's my takeaway. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer any. And also my email is on the screen. It's suzanne.sinke@workforcesolutionsctx.com. Happy to answer any email questions as well. So with that, Miss Cindy, I'm back to you.
All right. Any questions that we have in our Facebook comments, Denise? Must have a delay. No questions? Okay, I have a question, Suzanne.
Yes, ma'am.
You touched upon some amazing information that a lot of people do not know. You know, they go and they get in a job, and there's some people with this personality and some people with that personality, and they're not sure how to deal with all of this. Does Workforce Solutions offer services of people who, if they're having struggles with with soft skills at their positions? Do you guys have that type of a service?
We have some exceptional folks that deal with resumes, interviewing, and certainly soft skills is one of them. Miss Mara can actually talk more about some of the stuff Workforce Solutions themselves at the Career Centers do, but from my understanding, they definitely help in many areas to get you further along to be workforce ready. And that would involve skills like that, the interviewing, the resume writing, mock interviews, you name it. There's quite a bit.
Oh, okay. What if they had already started the job? Does Workforce like say goodbye? Or will they say, you can come on in and, we'll help you with the beginnings of your job?
No, I certainly think they have many helps, but Miss Mara, I think, has a comment that she can expand on this.
Hi, I'm sorry. Yeah, the workforce, even after you get a job, we still want you back. Well, we don't want you back to be there every single day, but we actually build relationships with our customers. And so when they get a job, we get very happy and excited that they got a job because we work with this person. It's like baby steps. You teach them, you do a resume with them. They get their interview. You get them ready for the interview, and then they get the job, and we celebrate with them. But we also have other services. They can come back to use our computers, because if you have a Work in Texas account, it's our job search engine for the state of Texas. It's free of charge. If you're 16 and over, you can actually open an account. And so it builds a profile for you. You can always come back And there's a lot of people that get part-time jobs or just a job because they need the job at the moment. And they keep looking through our system as a matching system. And they keep looking through the system and they can still come back and ask questions. We don't just, hey, you're done with us and we're done. No, we have other services. We have childcare services. There is also vocational rehab for people who have disabilities and they need accommodations on their for work. We can also refer them to that. We have there is a specialty room that if you have a resume already, then you can go in there and get direction on how to. They can revise it for you. They can help you make. So it's and besides all the workshops that we offer, and you know the Workforce Solutions Central Texas website will have all that information on there. That's something that they can actually log on to or go on to, and then open an account with Work in Texas, and they can log in. Our Work in Texas will do about 7 different resumes for the customers after they do their profile, and it takes about 7 steps to do to open an account. It seems a little lengthy, but once they have it, it's a breeze. It'll connect you with different employers. It's a matching system. So yeah, no, we don't throw you away. We like to keep a relationship with our customers.
That's good. And we also, I want to put a plug in for our CTC Career Center. I know that the Career Center has like different assessments to help you figure out what you want to be when you grow up. You know, like me, who can't figure out what I want to be when I grow up. Do you guys have anything like that where people can do assessments to kind of help them to figure out what area they want to work in?
Oh, am I still logged in? Okay. Certainly the source specialist, I thought Miss Mara was going to, the source specialists have opportunities to speak with many of our students. Certainly, there's an interest profiler that with Workforce in Texas or workintexas.com, I believe it has an area where that can touch base on that as well. But through us, your SOAR representatives, we also have ways to help students with that. We can give them direction on where to go for an interest profiler, where they can answer question and answer. We can look up jobs for them if they're curious to know what kind of education it requires, or maybe they want to know what type of salary range it might be in, or even if they're hiring in Central Texas. You know, with that being where we're at anyway, we can certainly find these answers out for them to help.
Okay, well, thank you. This has been extremely informative. I truly appreciate you ladies taking the time today to come and talk with us, to talk with our students globally. You know, we want to remind our students, we at CTC and Workforce Solutions of Central Texas, we want you guys to succeed. And therefore, we're offering and they're offering all these resources so that we can get you all on the road to a career. So make sure Denise will put in our contact information. She'll put in their contact information into the comments. If you have any questions, contact them or contact our career center. Keisha Holman doesn't bite, I promise you. And make sure again, if you need proof that you had watched this, go ahead to the library website and log your name in under the registration for these two. Now, don't forget, we have one more Workforce Solutions workshop tomorrow at 12:15. And that one involves, once you've been in a career in a while and in your position a while, how do you deal with that? You know, and so that's going to be a continuation of this series. If there's no more questions, Janice, I thank our speakers. Janice, thank you so much for hosting this. And everybody have an awesome day. Speakers, don't go away. And
Okay.
Max will let us know when we're done. Thank you. Bye, guys. Have a good day.